My flowers are cleaned and ready to arrange. These are out of water, but it's okay for a few minutes because I'm going to give everything a fresh cut before I put it in the vase. For this arrangement, I've selected a vintage pottery piece. What I like about this is that the techniques I'm going to do here will really apply to any sort of thing. If you have a basic glass cylinder, or if you have, a lower dish like this, or if you're even using, a juice glass or something with a wider mouth. So because this does have a wider mouth, I'm going to tape it off. I have floral tape here. You can do this with basic Scotch tape. So because it is a wide opening, I want to do a tic-tac-toe grid to give me a little bit more support for my stems, and especially as you remember these beautiful hyacinths, which are very top heavy, they need that extra little lift. So I'm just gonna go like this and just slice it with my knife, and I'm very firmly pressing it down. You want to make sure your vase is very dry, because this tape, or Scotch tape for that matter, does not stick well if there's any moisture. So just 1, 2, 3, 4, much more than that, and especially because Scotch tape can sometimes be thicker, it takes up too much real estate, and you're gonna have a hard time getting your stems in. And then I take it and I wrap it tightly around the outer edge and cut it, and then really press it down tightly. So there I have you can hear the bounce. It's nice and firm. Next step, water. So if you do not have commercial flower food, then what I recommend is you can either use 7-Up or Sprite, a lemon lime soda, not diet. This has sugar and citric acid in it, so you would use about 2/3 to a half clean water, and then the rest would be 7-Up. If you don't have that, you can use a little bit of vodka. So this will actually help to feed the flower. The citric acid and the 7-Up feeds it. My vodka trick, a splash of vodka in the water helps to keep the bacteria from growing, which causes flowers to break down quicker and die quicker. So these two at-home remedies are very nice in lieu of professional flower food. Or at the end of the day, clean water, a clean vase. The jury's out how much they actually help. So now I'm going to fill this with water, very carefully avoiding my grid. I'm going to go almost to the top. And now it's time to design. So I don't have my little Lazy Susan, but I'm just doing it on top of this terracotta pot or something, just to give it a little lift so it's easier for me to see. Because a lot of times when you're making flower arrangements, and if you do them too low, and remember, I'm working on an even taller table, so if I were working on a standard counter, it'd even be lower. It's very easy to just design it and look at it from this angle, whereas if you put it on top of something, you can step back and look at the profile while you're doing it. What I like to do when I'm working with a wide mouth vessel like this is kind of work my way around the edge. So I'll start and I'll just work my way around the edge, and then I'll fill in with the center. So another thing, we have our flowers here, but because it is summertime and many of you have yards and gardens, I really encourage you to go outside and find some foliage, whether it's boxwood. This is privet here if you're in the Hamptons, this is everywhere. Burning bush, any leafy green. That just helps the flowers go a little bit further. Plus, I think the addition is nice, especially in the summer. So I'm just gonna do a couple of whacks of this stuff. And I'm gonna start with some sprigs of this privet. You don't have to use this, obviously. Sometimes I even trim from houseplants, but this stuff is nice and hardy. Most of the summer shrubs are pretty tough. Most important step is I'm taking all the leaves off. I do not want to have any leaves in this vessel. I can have, chaotic arrangement up here, but down here it needs to be sterile, immaculate, because it's the leaves and the bits and the bobs that break down and cause the flowers to die quicker. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of a cushion of this privet. And this is a nice way to just make it easier to fill in with flowers. It finishes off the edges. Again, I'm working my way around. I'm removing all of the bits that may end up in the vase. I'm actually going to bring this one down a little bit. You want your stems, whether they're flowers or foliage, you want your stems to go to the bottom of the vase, because as these flowers drink water, the level of the water will go down. So obviously, if your stem ends right here and overnight it drinks and the water level ends there, this will be dead and out of water. You can eliminate that by sending them all the way down to the bottom. Also, when you're done with your arrangement, I often like to take time and kind of tweak and pull stems out and have more kind of movement. If they're down long, you have more flexibility to do that than if they're short. So I'm going to just turn this around, add a few more bits on this back side. And now 4 pieces is good. I'm actually going to add one more, sink it in a little bit lower. This will help support the flowers. And again, with these hyacinths being because they're not in season and they open up so quickly, they're not going to last as long as they do in the spring. I want to give them as much support as I can. Now, I actually like this piece in the center to be a little bit lower because it's going to be a little bit undulation. You know, you can do whatever you want. At this point, you want to have a lot of fun with it. I don't want my shape to be too perfectly round. I want to have some in and out. Once you finish off your edges and you don't have exposed edges, you have a softness, do whatever you want. Just keep balance and symmetry in mind. I think I'm going to start with some Lisianthus. So I have these stems here. There are a couple of pieces here, so you can just break them apart like that to smaller, more manageable pieces. I'm going to remove these bottom leaves. And let me just start by, I'm going to actually put that right in there. So I'm going to cut this a little bit lower. Again, I don't want any of my leaves to be in the water. So I'm going to fill in a few sprigs of this where I don't have privet. So just 1, 2, maybe I'll get another one in the back. What's nice about this Lisianthus, because besides the fact that it's full and double and super ruffly and beautiful, and you can see how the color kind of does this pale violet, then it goes to rich purple, is that it has some oomph to it. So it's good for, you know, filling in. And you can get a couple of cuts per stem. And then they have these pretty little lime green buds, which are nice. So let me get one more right in there. So now I have, all of my edges are finished, and I have this kind of cushion that I can keep adding. Now a piece like this, you can see it looks pretty masticated. I really chewed this one up, but there still is something good to be found here. This great little stem with this green bud. I'm just going to clean it off and set it aside for later. So let me get some roses in there. And these spray roses are very pretty, a soft peach color. Again, I'm going to sharp cut at a 45-degree angle and then boom, plunge it in the water. Now I want to show you a tip. Because you may not know exactly where you want this flower, you can do this. Have a cup of water off to the side and give it a cut, like boom, and instantly dip it in there. That buys you a little bit more time to kind of decide where you want it to go. So now you don't have to be so exacting and so quick. So again, I'll put that there. I'm gonna slowly, I want my flowers to have room to open, not be too tight or packed. Let me get one more rose. What I like about setting it on this is I can step back and kind of squint and look at my profile. So let me get one more rose. I'm cutting this a little bit on the longer side because it's easier to shorten the flowers than it is to try to make them longer. So actually, I'm happy with that there. Now, I want to get some of these hyacinths in because they are a little fragile, and I want to get them in because these stems are very soft and fleshy while there's still a fair amount of space in the vase. So I'm gonna just shorten this a little bit. It will continue to grow. So I'm gonna tuck this in very gently, a little bit lower than I think I might want it, knowing that in the next couple of days, it will continue to grow. Also, I really want the head of this, blossom to be tucked in here. I'm gonna add 3 in there. The addition of the smell is really quite lovely. Let me put one. So sometimes you have to get in with your fingers and just give it a little bit of a coaxing. You don't want to jam it in there. You don't want to bust the stems. But By having these in a little bit tighter, they will last longer, they'll support. So there are 3 right there is good. So now you can see that my shape is starting to come to life a little bit. Now I'm gonna add another piece of this double Lisianthus in here. I have 4 cuts on this one stem. So take this outer leaf off. These Lisianthus leaves, I'm not terribly fond of them because they're very leathery and kind of chalky. I don't love them. I don't mind leaving a few at the top, but now I'm gonna start filling in the center here. And because I have my grid, it's easier to have some sort of a placement. So with this one stem, I can get some nice cuts. I love the little bit of a lime green that goes with it. I want this to be a little bit lower. I'm liking this dip right here because I'm kind of creating these little peaks and valleys, and I don't want to cover up the hyacinths. I want them to be a little bit of a fragrant secret. So let me get this in here. Okay, and just go through and lightly rustle your blooms. You know, like I said, I think it's important not to have the flowers so crammed that it squishes them and changes the shape. And then once you really kind of have figured out your overall profile, you can have some fun doing different layers and different levels. So let me get one more out here. And then maybe I'll do another rose in here. Then I'm going to finish off with some clematis. So this rose, let's let that be a little bit more at an angle like this, and then you can kind of go in and every once in a while just get in there and kind of tickle. I have this guy, remember him? So let's put him, make him a little long. He can just kind of soar above the rest like that. Now, let's get some clematis in here. This adds a very nice summery lightness to the whole composition. And if you remember, I didn't take my bottom leaves off. Now here's why. Let me just create a little bit more room. I'm very much about having an immaculate workstation. I think when there's a lot of crud around, it's hard to see what you're doing. So, okay, so now I have this piece here with these 2 leaves here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this right here. And what this does is gives me a nice, soft leaf. I like this clematis foliage. It's a pretty green. It's not shiny or glossy. It's soft. And I can actually use that to get a little bit of drape somewhat down here in my arrangement. So let's not waste those leaves. And then this piece, which I cut off, and tuck it kind of in there and let these leaves kind of do their thing. So if I do 3 of these, this one with the pretty purple blossom down here. Then I can use this leaf in the back. And I like to spin it so I can see it from all sides. And I'm a squinter. What I like about squinting is that you can step back and squint and you can kind of see your shape, kind of figure out what you need. And then maybe this one would be nice right up here. So because I want this to be a little bit taller, this one actually is damaged. I'm going to leave that leaf on there and tuck it in here. So just remember, while this has this nice kind of sweet disarray happening up here, inside my vase, it's very clean. The stems are very, very clean. The water's clean. They're interlocking with each other. So just play around. This one popped out. I'm gonna get him a little deeper. And then as the days go by, if flowers start to die, you just simply remove them, bring them to the sink every morning, top them off with water. It's really important that flowers stay away from sun or vents or even air conditioner because that dries them out. So there you go, just have fun and enjoy these really fragrant hyacinths, pretty little spray roses, and the Lisianthus and the clematis.